He was once hailed as Kenya's no-nonsense reformer, but behind the polished technocrat lies a legacy soaked in fear, brutality, and blood. And now, he wants to be president. Is Dr. Fred Matiang'i a true reformer, or an authoritarian threat to Kenya's democracy? Dr. Matiang'i earned national admiration for his sweeping reforms at the Education Ministry. To some, he's still the decisive leader who fought corruption. As Education Cabinet Secretary, he dismantled exam cheating cartels, becoming a national hero. But a darker, more eerie narrative also exists. Dr. Matiang'i's move to the Interior Ministry revealed an unforgiving enforcer, particularly during the 2017 post-election violence. His tenure as the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Coordination of National Government was marked by serious allegations of human rights violations, institutional overreach, and suppression of civil liberties, issues that raise deep concerns in the context of democratic governance. This duality raises questions as Kenya approaches the 2027 elections. Was his firm hand a genuine act of service, or a trial run for authoritarian governance? Critics cite extrajudicial killings and disregard for court orders. The debate is about the soul of the nation and the path it will take. As the 2027 election cycle begins, the specter of Dr. Matiang'i's potential presidential candidacy looms large. Kenya stands at a critical juncture, a crossroads between consolidating its fragile democracy and veering off towards an authoritarian future. Disturbing reports have also surfaced linking Dr. Fred Matiang'i to one Ari Ben-Menashe, nicknamed the warlord's favorite lobbyist, whose client list reads like a who's who of authoritarian regimes and warlords accused of heinous crimes. This documentary seeks to peel back the layers of Dr. Fred Matiang'i's public and private persona. We will revisit the scenes of Dr. Matiang'i's acclaimed triumphs at the Ministry of Education and contrast them with the bloody aftermath of the ruthless security operations under his command at the Interior Ministry. Ultimately, the big question is this: is Dr. Fred Matiang'i a true reformer, or an authoritarian threat to Kenya's democracy? The answer will determine the very character and survival of the Kenyan Republic. Before becoming a figure of state power, Dr. Fred Matiang'i was a respected academic. Holding a doctorate, he lectured at Egerton University and the University of Nairobi. His background was one of scholarly rigor, far removed from the blunt politics that would later define him. His transition to public service showcased his capacity for institutional reform. In 2013, he was appointed Cabinet Secretary for Information, Communication, and Technology. He quickly established a no-nonsense approach, spearheading the digital migration process. He pushed the initiative through with unyielding determination, demonstrating a willingness to use his office to achieve his objectives. This proved he was a decisive implementer, building a reputation for delivering results. It cemented his image as a leader unafraid of confronting entrenched interests. President Kenyatta saw in him a tool capable of breaking down corruption, starting with the education sector. When Dr. Matiang'i was moved to the Ministry of Education in late 2015, he inherited a system in crisis. The credibility of Kenya's national examinations was in tatters due to rampant cheating. Papers were leaked and sold, creating a corrupt marketplace that rewarded dishonesty. This fraud devalued the national education system. Dr. Matiang'i declared war, dissolving the entire board of the Kenya National Examinations Council in March 2016, replacing them with a new team led by his strict former boss, the no-nonsense former vice-chancellor of the University of Nairobi, Professor George Magoha. The message was clear: the old ways were over. What followed was a set of sweeping and meticulously enforced reforms, known as the Matiang'i Rules, designed and implemented with military precision. The storage and distribution process was radically changed. Dr. Matiang'i became the face of the operation, conducting surprise visits. The results were immediate and transformative, restoring faith in the education system. Dr. Matiang'i's reforms in education had a seismic impact. The 2016 KCSE results stunned the nation. Top grades plummeted due to the end of widespread cheating. Matiang'i was lauded as a national hero for cleaning up the education system. President Kenyatta entrusted him with more responsibilities, making him a de facto prime minister. He cracked down on inefficiencies, earning the moniker Super CS. His public profile soared, making him a powerful figure. He was seen as a principled technocrat, prioritizing national interest. Supporters believed Kenya needed strong, incorruptible leaders like him to fight corruption. This success provided political capital for his next controversial role. However, early signs of authoritarianism foreshadowed his interior ministry tenure. His effective command and control approach was a double-edged sword, containing the seeds of the enforcer he would become. In the tense aftermath of the 2017 elections, President Uhuru Kenyatta appointed Dr. Fred Matiang'i as Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Coordination of National Government, a move that placed him at the center of Kenya's security machinery. No longer the reformer of education, Matiang'i now commanded the police, prisons, and provincial administration, wielding immense power during a volatile period. His mandate was clear: maintain order at all costs, even as political tensions threatened to boil over. The qualities that made him a hero, decisiveness, intolerance for opposition, would now be tested in a far darker arena. The transformation from celebrated public servant to feared enforcer was swift, setting the stage for a period of intense state repression. The 2017 presidential election crisis saw opposition protests erupt across Kenya, and Matiang'i's response was immediate and forceful. Police under his command cracked down hard, deploying live ammunition, tear gas, and beatings in opposition strongholds. Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International documented over 100 deaths from the widespread police brutality, with the true toll likely much higher. Despite mounting evidence, Matiang'i's ministry justified the violence as necessary, dismissing victims as criminals. The reformer's image was shattered. He was now seen as an authoritarian enforcer, prioritizing state control over citizens' rights. The hands that once protected exam integrity were now stained by the blood of protesters. The legacy of the crackdown was fear and trauma. Matiang'i's name became synonymous with state terror in affected communities. Official denials and a lack of accountability fostered a culture of impunity within the security forces. Civil society and the media faced hostility as they sought to expose abuses, deepening mistrust in state institutions. The enforcer's unyielding defense of police actions set a precedent for intolerance of scrutiny. The 2017 crackdown marked a point of no return, fusing Matiang'i's public persona with the image of state force. For many, the reformer was gone, replaced by a legacy of pain and fear. During the second half of 2021 and through the year, a new horror emerged. More than 30 mutilated bodies turned up in River Yala in the western part of the country, many showing signs of torture and execution. According to some reports, up to 70 bodies were found, some reportedly handcuffed. Human rights groups linked these deaths to enforced disappearances, often implicating police and security agents. The Interior Ministry under Matiang'i denied responsibility, blaming criminal gangs despite mounting evidence. Grieving families identified loved ones last seen in police custody, turning the river into a symbol of state impunity. Critics saw this as the logical outcome of Matiang'i's security doctrine, where the state acted as judge, jury, and executioner. The Yala River became a haunting testament to a nation where the rule of law was dangerously eroded. Under Matiang'i, the executive openly defied court orders, undermining judicial independence, and the 2010 Constitution. Kenya-born opposition lawyer Miguna Miguna was abducted, assaulted, detained incommunicado, and denied access to legal counsel. In open and blatant defiance of habeas corpus and other court orders, he was bundled onto a plane and deported twice, forcibly exiling him in a case that spotlighted deep authoritarian tendencies. Judges condemned these actions as despotic, but the executive faced no real consequences. Court orders protecting citizens' rights were routinely ignored, crippling the judiciary's ability to check executive power. Critics saw this as proof of Matiang'i's authoritarian tendencies, where state security trampled on constitutional rights. The space for civil liberties shrank, as the government's contempt for the courts became the new normal. With the streets subdued, the final pillar of democratic accountability, a free and independent press, also came under immense pressure. Dr. Matiang'i's ministry presided over a crackdown on media houses critical of the government to control the narrative. Following Raila Odinga's mock swearing-in at Uhuru Park, Nairobi, on January 30, 2018, the government shut down 4 major television stations. For days, Kenyans were left with blank screens as the state sought to impose an information blackout, citing national security. Critics saw this as censorship designed to punish the media for covering the opposition. The shutdown persisted even after a high court order to restore broadcast signals, demonstrating the campaign to control information was not bound by judicial review. This sent a chilling message: fall in line or be switched off. Journalists faced intimidation, threats, and physical assault. This pressure forced self-censorship, shrinking the space for investigative journalism. This multi-pronged assault completed Dr. Matiang'i's transformation into an enforcer, neutralizing dissent and controlling the narrative. It provides a terrifying preview of how a Matiang'i regime might govern. As Dr. Fred Matiang'i lays the groundwork for a potential presidential bid, his choice of international partners has raised eyebrows. He has reportedly sought the services of a Canadian consultancy firm led by the eccentric and notorious lobbyist, Ari Ben-Menashe. Ari Ben-Menashe is an Iranian-born Israeli-Canadian businessman, former Israeli intelligence operative and political consultant whose career has been marked by controversy and intrigue. He is the fixer for the warlords, the spin doctor for despots. Ben-Menashe founded Dickens and Madson, a Canadian lobbying firm that is notoriously specialized in whitewashing the images of autocrats and improving the international reputation of leaders accused of heinous crimes. The firm lobbies Western governments on behalf of pariah states and warlords, promising legitimacy often for a hefty fee. Dr. Fred Matiang'i's decision to associate with such a figure is, at best, bewildering. Why would a man who wants to lead Kenya align himself with a lobbyist for war criminals? This alliance is a giant red flag, a warning about the kind of worldview that could shape a Matiang'i presidency. By hiring Ben-Menashe, Matiang'i sends a chilling message suggesting a willingness to use global disinformation to manipulate international perception, bypass accountability, and potentially normalize brutal political repression in Kenya. Among Ari Ben-Menashe's clients is Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, or Hemeti, commander of Sudan's Rapid Support Forces. The RSF grew out of the Janjaweed militias, linked to the Darfur genocide, carrying out ethnic cleansing, mass rape, and murder. Hemeti rose through this machinery, earning a reputation for ruthlessness. In 2019, after Omar al-Bashir's ousting, Hemeti hired Ben-Menashe's firm for $6 million. Ben-Menashe was tasked to lobby the US and Russia for financial and military support to rebrand a warlord accused of crimes against humanity as a viable leader. This is a textbook example of leveraging geopolitical interests to whitewash brutal actors, ignoring evidence of atrocities. Ben-Menashe is willing to craft a narrative that serves the interests of the perpetrator, not the victims. The client list of Ari Ben-Menashe reveals a pattern of siding with oppressive regimes. In Zimbabwe, he was hired by Emerson Mnangagwa's government after the coup that removed Robert Mugabe. Mnangagwa has a long and brutal history, implicated in the Gukurahundi massacres where over 20,000 ethnic Ndebelés were killed in the 1980s. Ben-Menashe's firm signed a deal with the military junta in Myanmar after their violent coup. The junta launched a savage crackdown, escalating into civil war where over 3,000 civilians were killed, with thousands others, including elected leaders and journalists, jailed. Ben-Menashe's contract was to help the generals explain their actions to the West. In both Zimbabwe and Myanmar, the playbook is identical. Partner with violent leaders, craft a geopolitical argument, and distract from the brutal reality. It is a business model built on the suffering of ordinary people. The firm is a clearinghouse for authoritarian legitimacy, enabling regimes to use brutal repression to consolidate power and evade consequences. The association between Dr. Fred Matiang'i and Ari Ben-Menashe, the warlord's favorite lobbyist, is not a minor political misstep. It is a profound and deeply troubling revelation. For Kenya, a nation that has struggled for decades to build democratic institutions, this alliance should serve as the loudest possible alarm bell. It signals a potential presidential candidate's comfort with authoritarian politics where human rights are disposable and brutal actions are sanitized by high-priced spin. This choice goes to the very heart of the leadership Dr. Matiang'i would offer Kenya and the kind of nation he envisions. The alliance forces a re-evaluation of Dr. Matiang'i's own past. His tenure as Interior Cabinet Secretary, marked by police brutality, extrajudicial killings, and defiance of court orders, can no longer be seen in isolation. When viewed through the lens of his association with Ben-Menashe, these past actions cease to look like heavy-handed mistakes and start to look like a consistent ideological approach. The methods of Hemeti, Mnangagwa, and the Myanmar junta, crushing dissent, eliminating opponents, and ignoring legal constraints are the very methods their lobbyist is paid to defend. Dr. Matiang'i's decision to tap into this same network should be a cause for grave concern of Kenyans. Furthermore, this has grave implications for Kenya's international standing. Kenya is a regional anchor state that has positioned itself as a diplomatic hub in East Africa, a respected partner for Western democracies. A presidency guided by Ben-Menashe's advice would jeopardize this legacy. It would align Kenya with a rogue gallery of pariah states. The country's foreign policy could shift to defending the indefensible, potentially inviting international sanctions, isolation and loss of the moral authority that Kenya has built. Ultimately, the choice of a lobbyist is a choice of values. By engaging a man whose client list is a testament to human cruelty, Dr. Matiang'i is making a clear statement about his calculus of power. Where international legitimacy is a commodity to be bought, where violence is a public relations problem to be managed, and where democratic principles are obstacles to be overcome. For Kenyans looking towards 2027, the warning could not be clearer. The issue is no longer just about Dr. Matiang'i's past actions, it is about the dark and bloody future he may be planning with the help of the world's foremost lobbyist for warlords. To assess a potential Matiang'i presidency, it would be helpful to examine Kenyan democracy under President William Ruto. The Ruto administration has faced challenges and controversies including public anger over new taxes, police brutality on mass protesters, abductions and enforced disappearances of bloggers, activists, and outspoken critics. Concerns have been raised about shrinking space for dissent and weakening independent institutions. But Kenya still operates within a democratic framework even if the current administration tests its limits. A key distinction exists between the pressures exerted by the Ruto administration and the complete dismantling of civil liberties under Matiang'i. Ruto's government hasn't overseen extrajudicial killings or defiance of court orders on the scale of Matiang'i's tenure. This distinction is critical because the Ruto administration still allows for democratic pushback. While Kenya's democracy is under strain, Matiang'i posed a more direct and existential threat. Despite the immense pressure from the executive, Kenya's democratic skeleton has proven remarkably resilient. One of the most powerful bulwarks against authoritarian creep has been the nation's judiciary. Even when faced with public attacks from the president and a history of defiance from the executive, Kenyan courts have continued to assert their independence. Judges have consistently issued rulings that have checked executive power, from suspending the implementation of controversial taxes to ordering the government to adhere to legal processes. This judicial courage provides a vital lifeline for the rule of law, demonstrating that at least one pillar of the state remains committed to upholding the Constitution, even when it is politically inconvenient to do so. Alongside the judiciary, Kenya's vibrant and tenacious civil society has remained a formidable force for accountability. Human rights organizations, activist groups, and community leaders have continued to document abuses, challenge government overreach, and mobilize citizens to defend their rights. Groups like Haki Africa were instrumental in exposing the Yala River killings, refusing to let the story be buried. During the recent anti-tax protests, it was civil society groups like the Law Society of Kenya that provided legal aid to arrested protesters and meticulously documented instances of police brutality. This eternal vigilance by non-state actors ensures that the government's actions do not go unscrutinized, creating a constant counter-pressure that helps to keep the democratic space open, however contested it may be. The Kenyan media, though often operating in a challenging and intimidating environment, has also played a crucial role. Despite the risks of government backlash and the economic pressures of self-censorship, investigative journalists continue to publish stories that expose corruption and abuse of power. Media houses provide a platform for diverse political viewpoints and give voice to the grievances of ordinary citizens. The very fact that a documentary like this can be produced and debated is a testament to the fact that freedom of expression, while under threat, has not been extinguished. The media landscape, with all its imperfections, ensures that an alternative narrative to the official government line is always available to the public. This ecosystem of resistance, comprised of an independent judiciary, a vocal civil society, and a relatively free press, is Kenya's greatest defense against a slide into authoritarianism. Even under immense pressure, the democratic system has not collapsed under President William Ruto. The threat posed by a potential Matiang'i presidency is that his track record suggests a leader who would not just pressure these institutions, but would actively seek to dismantle them entirely, as he once did, by systematically defying court orders and shutting down media stations. The resilience of today would face its ultimate test tomorrow. As Kenya looks towards the 2027 general election, it is clear the nation is facing a momentous choice. It is a choice between two fundamentally different visions of governance. On one hand is the current path, a flawed and fragile democracy, On the other hand is the future foreshadowed by Dr. Matiang'i's past actions and present associations, a vision of governance rooted in order, efficiency and control, delivered by a firm, authoritarian hand. Ultimately, the decision rests with the Kenyan people. They must weigh the promise of decisive leadership against the peril of absolute power. The choice is not between a flawed present and a perfect future, but between a struggling democracy and a polished autocracy. The future of Kenya hinges on whether its citizens remember the lessons of their own painful history. We have journeyed through the chilling trajectory of Dr. Fred Okengo Matiang'i, from a celebrated academic to a feared enforcer. The evidence paints a deeply troubling picture. The brutal 2017 post-election crackdown that saw over 100 people dead, and the haunting discovery of over 30 tortured and mutilated bodies in the Yala River, symbolize a Matiang'i state's capacity for violence against its own people. This brute force was complemented by a systemic assault on Kenyan democracy. The defiance of court orders and the silencing of the media is a blueprint for dismantling a democratic state from within. The decision to align with Ari Ben-Menashe is the final damning piece of the puzzle, connecting Kenya to the darkest chapters of modern history. The question of whether Dr. Matiang'i is a true reformer or an authoritarian threat to Kenya's democracy has been answered by his own actions. This is not a partisan political attack, it is a responsible warning grounded in historical fact. A nation that forgets the tortured and mutilated bodies found in the Yala River, the screams from the brutal post-2017 election crackdown, or the day its television screens went blank risks a repeat of these horrors. These lessons are already written in the scars of several Kenyan families and in the mass graves of other nations who trusted a strong man with their fate. Kenya stands at a precipice, facing a choice that will echo for generations. The resilience of Kenya's institutions offers hope, but these institutions are not invincible. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance. Kenyans must choose whether to heed the warnings of the past or to gamble their freedoms. Like and share this video with friends, subscribe to our channel and drop a comment to let us know which Kenyan politician we should feature next. We're here on a serious mission to let the truth speak louder than the propaganda.